Hello everyone, friends. My name is Ihor Havryshchak. It is a traditional YouTube platform of 24 channels. We have a live broadcast. Today is November 7th. I will ask you right away, be active, put your likes. Those who are not signed, please subscribe, because there are enough of them. There are those who regularly watch YouTube 24 but are not subscribed. Of course, comment and share our conversations. And I am glad to welcome Ramiz Yunus, a political scientist from the United States, former chief of staff of the Azerbaijani government, to Ukraine on Thursday evening. Mr. Yunus, hello. Hello, I am glad to see you in good health. I greet all our esteemed audience, glory to Ukraine. I want to congratulate you. Many might think that this congratulation is related to the last presidential elections in the United States, but no, 3 days ago Mr. Yunus had a birthday. Let's congratulate, who wants to, can write wishes in the comments, well, you, greetings and wish you health, Mr. Yunus. Thank you very much, dear. It is always doubly pleasant to receive congratulations, especially from a person with whom I have been working for many years, and it is especially pleasant that he is Ukrainian, that Ukraine is watching me, which today thousands of people write to me. Therefore, thank you for this. There is an opportunity to thank everyone at once, thousands of people who write and congratulate me. 65 years is some kind of milestone, an anniversary date. I really hope that our next birthday will celebrate peace, love and Ukraine. The war will end, and it will end the way we all want it to end. And it will end with your victory, exactly the way we want it. This is the best wish for my next birthday, which I wish myself. You can't think of a better one. Mr. Yunus, do you think that the fact that Donald Trump became the 47th President of the United States in America is a birthday gift for you? Is this a disappointment or how to evaluate such a serious victory at all? Because, it seems to me, even Trump himself and his entourage did not expect that he would win the election so confidently. In addition, we know that both in the Senate and the lower House of Representatives are also for the Republicans. In fact, all power will be in Donald Trump, the way he wants and the way he loves. Well, first of all, it has nothing to do with me, because I always try to behave unbiased and independent. Officially, I am an independent person. I do not support either the Republican or the Democratic Party. Even in the questionnaires, when I register here, sometimes there are questions, I write that I am independent, that is, I do not support either one or the other. In my views, I am more conservative, that is, of course, closer to the ideology of the Republican Party, but precisely to the one that was laid down by the Founding Fathers. Today, many Republicans are not what they used to be. The last such Republican I knew personally was John McCain, deceased, I knew him. And if we talk about the president, the last such person was Ronald Reagan. Therefore, if we talk about the Republican, as for the Democrats, they have never been close to me at all, because I have always. The values they promote are not what people sought to come to America for. America is still a capitalist country, but everything is good, in moderation. For example, the Scandinavian countries are closer to me in spirit, so to speak. In Scandinavia, there is just a very middle ground. Therefore, today, when they talk about the standard of living of everyone in the world, there are dozens of these countries, including Finland, Sweden, Norway and Denmark. These countries, they stand apart. But America is still a country of immigrants, and therefore there are questions that sometimes exist among Democrats who are close to me. For example, their position on abortion is closer to the position of the Democrats, because it is not the business of the state to intervene and decide for a woman whether to give birth to a child or not. This is her own decision to dispose of her body. The state has no moral right to interfere in these matters, from my point of view. But, on the other hand, I am against same-sex marriages. I am against all the insanity that these modern liberal ideas preach. This does not coincide with my traditional views at all. Therefore, conservatives are closer to me here. And, well, on the other hand, I see that both of them are lying left and right today, so it's better to stay in the middle. And if you are an expert, you should behave like a doctor, and a doctor treats both those he loves and those he does not love, different ones. And he should not express his personal opinion, he should make a diagnosis. Therefore, not knowing how good I am, I try to be sincere with you. And that's why I didn't go to these elections, because Kamala Harris officially stated that she, well, to put it bluntly, is an enemy of Azerbaijan, because she fully supports Armenia's aggression against Azerbaijan for all these 30 years. And she's a California native. Her closest friends are Kim Kardashian, who raised $100 million in her pre-election campaign. And what do you think, an ethnic Azerbaijani who respects himself, who loves Azerbaijan, his homeland, not a single Azerbaijani will vote for it. Just like Joe Biden, he is one of the leaders of the Armenian caucus and a pro-Armenian-centric president, but she is much worse because she is a native of California. Therefore, I definitely could not vote for her. As for Donald Trump, I do not understand his position on Ukraine, and the statements that he made do not suit me somehow. Therefore, in order not to participate, and I go on your broadcasts, and, as you understand, I support you and, first of all, I support international law, which is on your side today, that is, the truth today is on the side of Ukraine, just as it is on the side of Georgia, just as it is on the side of Moldova. You know my critical attitude towards the Georgian government because of Mikhail Saakashvili. I support him more. But at the same time, I support the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Georgia. I am critical of Moldova and Maya Sandu, but I support the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Moldova. Transnistria is the territory of Moldova, just as I relate to your problem, and therefore I am in the same trench with you. If someone is a politician, says something wrong, or will try, declares that it will be to the detriment of Ukraine, I do not want to participate in this event. And despite the fact that I will not vote for Kamala Harris, there are fewer of the two nots, so to speak, it does not suit me. So that I calmly, with a clear conscience, go to the Ukrainian language. I love Azerbaijan, and therefore I do not vote for it. But what about Ukraine? Therefore, it will be more honest for me personally. In any case, I don't know about others. Everyone is responsible for themselves in this life. Therefore, I did not go to these elections, so there is no gift for me. On the other hand, I can give you the expertise that interests you, and from my point of view, it is too early to say anything. There is no need to panic, for the simple reason that you will know for sure that what was will no longer exist, that is, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. That is, Donald Trump, he belongs to this category, as I understand it. Either he will not support at all, he will not imitate, yes, as the Democrats did, that is, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, yes. Either he will support you 100%, or he will not support you 100%. That is, there are 2 options, yes, that is, he is not the right person, yes, to play tricks like this. We know this, so we need to see what he will do, because he had a meeting with President Zelensky, a closed meeting. No one said a word on this topic, neither he nor President Zelensky are silent. President Zelensky, with his friendly tweet, well, once again showed that he is ready to work, and he stressed that there, regarding the agreements that were at their personal meeting, and there, the key phrase, as I understand it, is peace through strength. Now the most important question that everyone is waiting for an answer to is what peace through strength means, which was voiced by President Zelensky and what Donald Trump offered him. That is, how the Americans and Donald Trump personally will demonstrate this strength. And only after that, we, experts, you, journalists and in general the citizens of Ukraine and everyone who supports Ukraine, will then understand the decisions that President Trump plans to make in this situation. And no one doubts that he will not stop this war in 24 hours, in 48 hours and in a week. This is pre-election rhetoric in order to come to power. I do not get tired of repeating the famous words of Bismarck. Never do they lie so much as before elections, during war, after hunting. That is, the fact that we heard so many lies during the election campaign, this is almost 70 to 80% of what they said, this is not true. And if Trump can implement at least 10 to 20% of what he promised, it will already be good for him as president. Especially with regard to domestic policy, at least first of all, the same immigration topic. Because it was on the immigration topic that he came to power in the first place. And in foreign policy, he declared in his victory speech in Florida that he would stop all wars, that is, the Middle East war and the Russian-Ukrainian war. That is, he does not want to fight with anyone at all. But if he is in the Middle East, it will be easier to do this, because Iran is the opponent of the same Israel there. And Iran is not Russia or a nuclear power. And Iran can be easily dealt with, and especially by the Americans, given that Donald Trump's direct ally, his personal friend, Benjamin Netanyahu, is in Israel. And in Russia and Ukraine, he has no friends. And it is also impossible to say that he has close partners. Because there are presidents in both of them who today in this confrontation, in this war, have reached such a state that not every one of them is going to retreat. Therefore, it will be very difficult compared to the Middle East conflict. The Russian-Ukrainian war is much more complicated. It cannot be solved in 1 day, or in 2 days, or in 7 weeks. Here we need some kind of solution that everyone will have to reckon with. That is, either he must make an offer to Ukraine that Ukraine can refuse, or he must set such conditions for Russia that Russia will have to reckon with. So let's wait, and let's not rush and not panic. Sooner or later, all this will be deciphered. Moreover, your president is not the person who will remain silent. You saw all 2.5 years of this war. He always said everything in plain text. Recently, look at how he criticized even the current administration. And this suggests that he was preparing, perhaps, for the fact that this administration will leave and Donald Trump will come. With Donald Trump, as we have already noted, he had a specific meeting, and he was satisfied with this meeting. Let's see how the results of this meeting will be implemented. Maybe they said, I'll do this, that. If this suits you, it is quite possible that he said, here is my victory plan like this. He also announced the victory plan. To do this, I need to come to power. Therefore, if President Zelensky is still speaking quite kindly, and he also has some hope, then he had some kind of conversation. Therefore, everything else is speculation. No one can say anything today. It is also wrong to rely on what a person said in the election campaign in the examination, because we understand this. During the election campaign, they mostly tell lies and everything they say will not be implemented. Because politics is politics, as Churchill said, politics is the person who will say exactly what will happen in a day, in a week, in a month. And when it doesn't, he's just as sure to explain why it didn't. Therefore, what I promised during the election campaign, I can safely say, does not work, because I have this in the Congress, in the lower house, in the upper house. And what you say, now he has received a balance card, yes, it has received a balance card, but this is a meager balance card, 51 to 49, the upper house. This is the appointment of personnel, ambassadors, ministers and everyone else, they will let them out of there. And do not forget that there are laws that must be adopted as a filibuster, that is, not 51 to 49, but at least 60, so you will have to negotiate with the Democrats. And since they are to negotiate with the Democrats, it means that some kind of bargaining will be needed both on personnel appointments and on finances, which will be decided in the lower house. And in the lower house, there is also a meager advantage, and in the same way it will be necessary to negotiate for sure. And in addition, these topics may well exist in the Middle East. Let me remind you how they butted heads for 6 months. If you remember, there was the topic of Israel, including the topic of Ukraine. So, yes, Congress today seems to be coming under the control of the Republican Party, but this is not the level of control that is needed to fully own it. If there were at least 150 in the Senate, and if there were 20 to 25 in the lower house predominantly, then, yes, it would be a complete carte blanche to push through any law, any decision. And plus the Supreme Court, which is also 6 to 3 supporters of the same Donald Trump, but in any case, the situation today is much better than it was when he was first elected president. And, given that he has already gained experience, and he understands what can be done and what cannot be done, he already understands how this system works, and where this system can be changed, and how it should be changed, and not like this, like an elephant in a china shop, as it happened then. And so this resistance came from within. I have no doubt that there will be a lot of resistance from the state apparatus, from the State Department, because I have no doubt that all Democrats will leave this State Department, and there will be a cadre, and not all Republicans will want to work, because you see how many did not support Donald Trump in the Republican Party itself, and did not even come to the Republican Party convention. Therefore, it is very important here how all this will go, how the team will come, how this team will begin to place personnel, key personnel. Let me remind you, in the same way that everyone is afraid that he will disperse the Pentagon, disperse intelligence, FBI, and who will he put in their places if he has so many personnel who can adequately replace this in the conditions of turbulence that exists around the world, and it is very important that specialists work here. Therefore, this is not such an easy question, especially when you say that "make America great again" is good in words, but in reality it is done by real people, and there should be thousands of them. These are cadres, and these cadres must not only belong to your party, but also to confusion and vacillation in your party. They're all supporting you, and look, George W. Bush at least congratulated her, didn't come to the convention. Cheney is also against him, and all the people he fired when he was in his first term, no one wants to work with him again. Therefore, these are very important points, how he will resolve these personnel issues, in the same way, who he will land in the Middle East, who will be in the Ukrainian direction, in the post-Soviet space, who will be the Secretary of State in this matter, who will be the Minister of Defense, whether he will disperse this general staff, all these branch troops, from where he will find such a number, and the phrase that "I need generals like Gibler." He says he didn't say that. The fact that this public plane was abandoned by one of his closest allies, the former head of his staff. General, whether this is true or not will depend on his actions. If he does, then it's true. And if he does not do this, how will he work with all these devices? You see, as a person who worked in the apparatus, I know that such a device is for such a small country as Azerbaijan, for America, which is a leader on the planet and wants to become a leader on the planet. This is a huge number of people who will work not only within the country, they will work all over this ball. And therefore, these risks and challenges that America faces both inside and outside the country, they require a very systematic approach, a personnel approach. Therefore, it is necessary to properly dispose of all this. And when the topic of Ukraine comes up, that's when he will do it. Therefore, these conversations about what is in a day, in two are just talks. Yes, I have no doubt that they will have some calls before January 20th with Vladimir Putin, and with Xi Jinping, and with Volodymyr Zelensky, and with other leaders, and with NATO, and the European Union. Undoubtedly, yes, because the whole background is already why wait for January 20th, it will be necessary to do exactly that. I think he will meet with Biden, and Biden will be obliged to keep him up to date with all the secret information that he may not have, despite the fact that he is a former president, and he is given the necessary information. But there is a limit to this information, which only the president knows. And therefore, I think, this is why he should also familiarize himself. He must really look at what is happening on the battlefield, how war is. That is, everything that Joe Biden knows today, Donald Trump should probably know, and then he will have to make a decision. And this is the key decision, that peace is through force, and sooner or later, before January 20th, we will not hear any of this, and after January 20th, these personnel appointments will begin, the first decisions, then we will be able to talk about something. By the end of the year, I think you will get all the same weapons that the same Joe Biden announced. I don't think that Donald Trump is a supporter of the same situation happening to Ukraine as it happened with the shameful flight of Americans from Afghanistan, and this was poked in the eyes of the same Joe Biden, and it was just the same Donald Trump basically organized. Yes, he made this decision, but Joe Biden had to execute it, and therefore it turned out to be such a fiasco for Joe Biden. And if he acts in a similar way with the same Ukraine, I don't think that the political establishment of the United States and half of this country that voted against, and again in Congress in huge numbers, there is a lot of bipartisan support for the same Ukraine, and in the camp of the Republican Party as well. I don't think it will like it so much, and he will want to go through this situation in this situation. Therefore, he will have to resolve this situation very delicately, competently, and use all the levers and opportunities that he, in principle, has. Whether he shows political will or not, but, in any case, his difference from Joe Biden is that he is, in fact, a man of action. This is an act, perhaps, in the direction of plus and in the direction of minus. Therefore, Here you need to behave differently from what he did in the first cadence. I hope that he has more experience. He will also do the right thing with personnel, and he will understand how important this topic is. This topic will be even more difficult than the topic of relations with China. I think he will be the first to start in the foreign arena with the same China. Because this is an economic topic, I have no doubt that he will not immediately introduce this 65%. He will talk to everyone first, and with the same Xi, and he will offer him his terms. Let's see how China reacts to this, and what it will result in. Because Donald Trump will not want to immediately declare a war on China. Because China is not Russia. And if Russia and the United States of America were not as economically tied as it was with the European Union, then the European Union, look at how it behaves with these sanctions, slowly, to this day. Not everything is covered up there yet. Then China is $1.5 trillion together with the United States and the European Union, and this is trade. So maybe it's shooting itself in the foot. This China can be punished on many points, including these tariffs. But at this moment, you can do bad things to your allies directly, in NATO, in the European Union, and here in the consumer market, here in the United States of America. Therefore, you can say a lot of good things, but when the subject plane works, and China is not the whipping boy who will be silent, it will also resist. Russia, you can see how it resists the same European Union. And China is not Russia, which means that China will resist too. Therefore, there must be some kind of deal here too. Therefore, I think I will summarize. In the foreign arena, he will first of all start with the topic of China. In the domestic arena, he will first of all start with the topic of immigration. And everyone else will be decided step by step, and I don't think he will be in a hurry. Because he will not solve these issues in a hurry, because neither President Zelensky nor President Putin will give up their positions so easily. Mr. Yunus, let's make an explanation, because at the beginning of the conversation we congratulated you on your birthday and now they write to us in the chat and ask, is Mr. Yunus a Republican? And yes, someone answers, yes, a Republican. No, Mr. Yunus is not a Republican, he is not a Democrat, he is not a Republican. I'm not a Republican, I'll tell you, or they'll say you said that. I'm on record, I've never been a member of the Republican Party, I've never been a member of the Democratic Party. From the first day of my arrival in America, which is already 23 years, I have always been an independent person. I think this is the right position. I'm going to vote, yes, the last time I voted was in the election of Barack Obama and John McCain, and I voted for John McCain, because I knew that person personally. I met with him several times, he helped me in my personal life. And after that, I did not go to the polls at all, because all the elections that took place afterwards, I was not satisfied with either the Democratic candidate or the Republican candidate, just as it was during the current cadence. Therefore, I want the audience to know and speculate less on this. Mr. Yunus, today, speaking at the Valdai discussion forum, Putin said the following. First, he congratulated Trump on his victory, calling him courageous, recalling the attempt on his life, and noted that he did not mind talking to him, did not mind Trump calling him. He also added that they used to call him, and then they stopped, and they say, they don't want to. In addition, Trump gave an interview where he expressed his readiness for contacts with Putin. How much of a threat is this, given that Matthew Miller said today that they would support Zelensky's desire to sit down at the negotiating table? Well, remember the same Donald Trump said that where he accused Joe Biden of refusing to meet with the president of Russia. So, having said this, he must do the opposite, yes. And as I understand it, by his charisma, by his psychotype, this is exactly what he will do. Therefore, the fact that they will talk on the phone and will probably agree to meet will undoubtedly be so. And the fact that now they are diplomatically trying to get away from this rhetoric, which, well, during the entire election campaign and the entire cadence of Donald Trump, he was always accused of special piety for the president of Russia, and he was reciprocated in the same way. Therefore, no one believed it when the Russian president said that Kamala Harris was closer to them. Even Dmitry Peskov made it clear with a smile that this was simply said as a curtsy, because it is clear to everyone that the Kremlin would be closer to Donald Trump's candidacy of the two candidates. And therefore, of course, there are curtsies both from the Kremlin and curtsies, as from President Trump. But curtsies are curtsies, definitely. If someone thinks that the United States and Russia can become allies, for this it is necessary to change the national security doctrine of the United States of America. There, Russia, along with China, Iran and North Korea, is still on the list of the main adversaries of the United States of America. Based on this, it means that it will be necessary to work with them, has contact. Donald Trump did not meet with his president and Xi, and he met with the leader of North Korea, and he met with the president of Russia. The only thing is that he did not meet with the Iranian spiritual leader. But, again, he did not do this purely out of his personal sympathy for Benjamin Netanyahu and for a special attitude towards Israel. If you take all the countries on the planet, he has the best attitude towards Israel and especially Benjamin Netanyahu. Therefore, it will have a tougher policy with Iran. I have no doubt about it. It's just a question of how much. This is the price of the issue that Iran will face today, and to what extent will Iran agree to this, if, as you can see, it has been curtsying for a whole year, looking for opportunities to make some kind of deal with the West. And I think that is why Iran did not react so harshly in the confrontation with Israel. For example, we saw some kind of spectacle that was played out by both Israel and Iran. That is, Israel achieved everything it wanted, it achieved whoever it needed, it destroyed, and Iran did not reach any targets, that is, in advance, like Mario robbing a bank in Italian. Remember, it was such a multi-Soviet time. This is about this topic. As for the possibility of a meeting and contacts between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, I have no doubt that there will be. It may even be up to, well, I mean, a telephone conversation can definitely be expected in the near future. In order to put an end to speculation that he does not do this at all. I think this call will emphasize that Donald Trump is interested in this Russian-Ukrainian confrontation, and this call wants to emphasize that his approach is different from Joe Biden's. Well, this is purely rhetoric, this is pure, so to speak, diplomacy. And the concrete work, first of all, is going on behind the scenes. I have no doubt that Trump's representatives and Vladimir Putin's representatives communicate. Specifically, they communicated during the election campaign, they definitely communicated before the election campaign. This is not hidden. You will remember the book by Utford, who emphasized it there and said it. And moreover, when President Trump was asked, he did not even deny this. He said, I am not going to answer this topic. Well, no one forbids him to communicate. Another thing, the question is, what topics they talked about. Well, for sure, they discussed a possible agenda in the event of Trump's return to the White House. Well, here he is. There are probably such contacts. Well, from experience, I can say that in big politics, there are always close people, first of all, people who may not even be exposed to specific positions. Let me remind you, the same Rudy Giuliani, who resolved many issues privately in matters related to the same Donald Trump. There are many other people we don't know who play golf with him, who don't shine in the media at all and don't give interviews. Their position is exactly such as not to shine. And these are not only intelligence representatives, so they were, are and will be contacts. And these contacts are when everything necessary is prepared. After all, when people meet at this level, their teams are obliged to do all the necessary rough work so as not to waste time, and so that when the top officials meet, all the necessary preparations are already done, leaving only the basic issues that they can solve personally, face to face, with each other. Therefore, it is very important to see what it will look like. But I have no doubt that the decision will be made after it is agreed not only with Moscow, but it will be agreed with Kiev, I have no doubt. Without Kiev, behind Kiev's back, Donor Crap will not make any decisions, because he simply cannot do it. The same President Zelensky will not give it to him. The current situation in which Ukraine and President Zelensky are is no longer 2014. This is no longer the same president, and Ukraine is no longer the same. especially after the explosions that Ukraine committed today. Therefore, the stakes that Russia has raised, the same Ukraine has raised the stakes, and this is what Donald Trump will have to sort out. Therefore, when many people are now panicking about the fact that yes, it is understandable, at the moment the situation is such that both Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, talking about a decision in 24 hours, imply that this will happen at the expense of Ukraine. Because in 24 hours he will decide to stop here today, in the situation where he is. But Ukraine will agree to this, which means that something must happen for Ukraine to agree to this. And what is it? I look at the victory plan proposed by the President of Ukraine. There are moments that Donald Trump can do. This is NATO's admission of Ukraine to NATO. Because NATO's admission depends on the United States of America, on its political will. Or there should be something else, like the situation with the same Israel, with South Korea, with the same Japan. There are military bases of the United States of America on the territory of Ukraine. This is just the non-nuclear deterrence in terms of Ukraine's victory, which President Zelensky spoke about. That is, there are options, such a reinforced concrete 100% guarantee. Israel has been in a hostile environment for so many years and exists quite well. As for Japan, for example, nuclear weapons are over the oceans, an American military base. In South Korea the situation is exactly the same, it's just that the South Korean version is a little different from the Middle Eastern Japanese, since there is a loss of territory there, this North Korea, which many are talking about today. Therefore, there are a sufficient number of options that can be taken if it is accepted by the entire Ukrainian society. I don't think that Donald Trump will be able to implement any plan that will not be accepted by the residents of Ukraine and the entire Ukrainian society. He will have to reckon with this, because Ukraine, I repeat, is not the Ukraine of 2014. Mr. Yunus, the last question, sooner or later all wars end with negotiations. This war will also end like this. Therefore, I have a question. Who and how can guarantee us that Putin, Russia will not gather their army again and will not attack? What options do you see? Joining NATO somehow, well, if the alliance wanted, it would have invited it a long time ago, yes, or would have announced the invitation, yes, or would have found some ways, like Azerbaijan and Turkey, or the deployment of NATO bases in Ukraine. Not joining NATO, well, maybe not even NATO, but other structures. How do you see the development of this cooperation with the alliance or the search for other options? It seems that I have already partially answered this question, but I can expand it, my understanding. Let's not be deceived. NATO is the United States of America. If the political will is accepted here in the White House by the President of the United States of America, Secretary General, the President of the United States of America will have the last word. And as a result, Rutte was appointed by Joe Biden, and everyone takes this into account. Therefore, if this General Secretary does not suit Donald Trump, if he wants to remove him, if as a result of the decisions that he needs, he can do it unambiguously, and no matter how much NATO resists. Therefore, it must be understood that NATO is a military organization. Yes, military political, but the first word is military, and the first army is the United States of America. The second largest, without nuclear weapons, is Turkey. The third army is France. There are 200,000. The fourth army is Great Britain. France and Great Britain, they have nuclear weapons. In the UK, probably, somewhere around 75–80,000. Turkey has millions of armies, and the Americans have even more. That is, I am saying this, and there is no longer an army in Europe. You live in Europe, of course. Therefore, they were under the American umbrella. They now want to create their own army by firefighting. They want to revive the military-industrial complex and everything else. And America, of course, is speculating on this. And, first of all, this is the tactics of the same Donald Trump. See, it worked. But it worked after the start of Russia's full-scale aggression against Ukraine. And let's see what options there are. One option is the admission of NATO. If NATO accepts, then unequivocally the goal that Ukraine has set for itself and which the same Russia opposes, This gives a good carte blanche to President Zelensky and his entire team so that Ukrainian society, that is, we fought for admission to the European Union and NATO. That is, everyone in the post-Soviet space fought for this. No one achieved this. Yes, I do not mean the Baltic countries, nor Georgia, nor others. That is, Georgia was punished in 2008 for this trend. Ukraine was punished for this in 2014. And Ukraine is now completely in this situation, for these tendencies. Because Moscow did not react to Finland and Sweden at all. They also accepted NATO after 1997, and they have a border itself. Why does Moscow react so calmly to them? Because it's up to the light bulb, by and large. They are primarily interested in Ukraine and Belarus. These are the states that form the geography for the Russian Empire, for the Soviet Union and for today's Russia. This is also the Black Sea Fleet. This is the Black Sea. Therefore, naturally, they will stand dead here. And that's why they don't want to be here. And Georgia as well. They do not want either Georgia or Armenia. They will not allow them there. Therefore, everything that is closer, directly the former territory of the Soviet Union, of course, is why they react so harshly to this. And if there is political will here, and they will be accepted into NATO and the European Union, then the South Korean option will be able to work here. That is, for the time being, And then they don't sit in the Kremlin forever either. There was once Andropov, then Mikhail Gorbachev came, and the Soviet Union collapsed, and a lot of people from the Baltic countries have returned to the moon of the Western world. You can decide a lot of things, but for this to happen, this territory needs to be just like that. In the same system, option, because on the isthmus of South Korea, on the border, there are 50,000 American soldiers, and they have been there since 1953, I think, for almost 70 years. Look at how many years they have been standing there. That is, look at North Korea, look at South Korea, right? Black and white cinema, color cinema. And the Americans are there. And the other day they sent submarines with nuclear warheads there. That is, no one will attack South Korea. It's neither China nor North Korea. Because you will have to deal directly with the Americans. Because the Americans have a specific agreement with them, right? That is, these are South Korea. These are strategic partners of the United States outside NATO, and Japan, and Israel. And therefore these countries are calm, and they do not want not to enter into any alliances. The United States of America alone is enough for them. That is, there is an option here. Either it is necessary through NATO, or it is necessary directly to the United States of America. Yes, after the United States of America, geographically, if we say Europe is the closest, it is, of course, the United Kingdom of all countries that can fit in. Because, firstly, Great Britain is the main ally in Europe of the United States of America. These are the Anglo-Saxons. And so it is no coincidence that the UK left the European Union after Brexit, and it has a completely different policy. And I remind you of the history of World War II. Churchill, Roosevelt and everything else, when all of Europe fell, Great Britain remained, and the Americans wrote so much, and so on. Therefore, this must be understood. The second option after the United States of America is the same Great Britain, yes, with the same guarantees. The option of NATO and the European Union is also another option. That is, when I say United States of America, I say Great Britain. This is the same option as Azerbaijan-Turkey after the Shusha Declaration. We have also signed the Shusha Declaration, and today everyone takes it into account. And the United States of America will be reckoned, and Brussels, and France, and Russia, and the same Iran. Because if someone attacks, even a nuclear Russia, for example, attacks or plans to attack Azerbaijan, it will have to deal with the second NATO army. And if the Turkish army fits in, as you understand, many in NATO will not just sit in this situation. Especially if it is Russia, or even more so, it will be the same Iran. Therefore, we have the Shusha Declaration. It is stronger than the fifth column, the fifth paragraph of the same NATO, which the fifth point of NATO has never been fulfilled by anyone to date. In words, only when it was September 11, 2001. Again, they all just supported the United States of America. But the United States of America did everything on the ground, and the United States of America has always fought on the ground. And in Korea, next to the Americans, there have always been only Turks, first of all, I mean on the ground. And on many issues, Great Britain, and also France, partly Italians, were added to them. For example, with regard to Israel and Iran, if you have seen them, they have been confusing a lot of things. What am I getting at? So that we understand when we talk about security guarantees. There are options. But first of all, when Donald Trump spoke with President Zelensky, if President Trump had told him, "I will give you these security guarantees, as the President of America, I will formalize it legally, it will be like the option with Israel, I will install an American military base there, and there will be nuclear weapons, there will be F-35s, everything that is needed. And everyone in this world will have to reckon with this. All, that is, this type. As I understand it, these are exactly the plans for victory. This is a non-nuclear deterrent. That is, Ukraine does not have nuclear status. For example, Turkey does not have nuclear weapons. But there are nuclear weapons at the Incirlik base. There are 50 nuclear warheads there. But the button is, of course, in Washington. But, again, they are located on the territory of Turkey. This is an American military base, and it has been there since the days of the Soviet Union, because Turkey and Israel have been the eyes and ears of the NATO bloc from the United States of America in this region since the Soviet Union, first of all, in the confrontation with the Soviet Union. Exactly the same can be created on the territory of the same Ukraine, without calling it NATO. That is, the Americans can do this, and they will not ask permission from anyone on the planet, neither from Russia, nor from China. All that is needed is the political will of the first person here and his team. Whether President Trump will show it or not. That is, if the Ukrainian establishment feel this, that yes, because instead of listening to these stupid conversations since 2008, NATO's doors are open for you, we will accept you, but everyone understands that this is already a lie. Here is the edited text with the preservation of the number of characters. In any case, I have been in big politics for 35 years, I already understand, if 35 years ago, when I was in the government, I was 33 years old, a young man, just like a huge number of people like me, who came to management then. One could imagine that the United States of America, which won the war with the Soviet Union, would suddenly come and lie so brazenly. Maybe they sought European integration, NATO and so on, and what they got in return. They made a deal with the Kremlin behind our backs, they made a deal with the Kremlin behind Georgia's back, they made a deal with the Kremlin behind Moldova's back, they made a deal with Ukraine's back, just like that. And now, do you think, from the height of these years, with the current situation, looking at all these betrayals in other geographies, will I be happy for this? Never. I am saying today that Azerbaijan does not need NATO for nothing. Azerbaijan does not need the European Union. Azerbaijan does not need any blocs at all. Azerbaijan needs reliable allies who fit in for Azerbaijan. And we will be in pragmatic relations with everyone. We have strategic and economic relations with the European Union. We make money with China, with Russia, with Iran, but by making this money, we first solved the issue of security. We have the Shoshana Declaration, and if someone wants to attack the Baku-Seahorn, Baku-Tbilisi, Kars pipelines, all these oil pipelines, gas pipelines, all this logistics, they will deal with all those countries and companies that have invested money there. British Petroleum and others, and American companies that have all invested there, and first of all, they will take into account the same Turkey, which has these relations with Azerbaijan. We have signed an agreement similar to that with the European Union, with the same China. We seem to have signed a partnership agreement with Russia, so Russia has always seemed to treat us well in words, but for the time being. But it has been tearing us apart for 200 years, yes, and dividing us together with us, with Iran, and the post-Soviet Union. The same Yeltsin, the First Karabakh War, how we were punished. And today, you see, it does not go any other way, because it has a confrontation in other geographies, especially with the same West, yes, and it is important for it to have the loyalty of the same Azerbaijan and the same Turkey. Therefore, from an Armenian-centric policy, they have a completely different policy, they do not have an Armenian centricity. They don't even have Azerbaijani centricity, yes. Well, they, of course, look at what is beneficial to them today. It is beneficial for them today to have a good loyal relationship with Azerbaijan, a good loyal relationship with Turkey. Are we satisfied with this? We are satisfied with this. Is Iran now taking this into account? Has it become silky? He became silky in this situation. But this does not mean that this will always be so. Tomorrow they are so good. That is, today they are so good, they seem to be on the tables, but tomorrow, how can the situation change? Therefore, we must be ready for this, for centuries, and therefore we will have this Shusha declaration for centuries. The presidents who exist today did not lay this foundation for the fact that this is not yet the president. This is for centuries, and the agreement that should be signed between Azerbaijan and Armenia should be for centuries. And it is through this prism that Ukraine should be so. That is, you must have allies for centuries. For For example, Israel has been with the United States of America for 70 years. This is the same 70 years Israel and South Korea. 70 years of Israel after World War II with the same Japan. Look at what Japan has become, what South Korea has become. For example, Israel today is the most prosperous country in this environment, in this region, both in military technical terms, in economic terms, and in many other areas. They have nuclear weapons, they have an excellent army and much more. But just for all this to happen, we need the political will of the United States of America, the political establishment of the first person. And after that, anyone will go to peace through force, whether it is China, whether it is Russia, because you will have to deal directly with the United States. And the United States of America for all these years, they will strengthen the same China so much. If Israel has become so strong in such a small geography today, and everyone takes this into account in this geography, and Israel solves many issues there without the Americans. The Americans are just bringing their destroyers there, just in case, we are standing there, keep in mind. But Ukraine is not Israel both geographically and in its human potential, and I remind you that Ukraine was the #1 military-industrial complex of the Soviet Union. All this is there. If you object to this, if the Americans invest in it, you can imagine what Ukraine will be like on the European continent. And it will be stronger than the same Germany, the same France, if the Americans invest in it. That is, the Americans can make the same South Korea, the same Japan out of this territory. But for this to happen, the Americans need to want it. That is, this requires political will. That is, once upon a time, the political leaders of America, in the 70s, the same Nixon, Kissinger, they also made such a political decision regarding Taiwan and China, and changed their places in the UN Security Council. And after that, thanks to Deng Xiaoping, and then there was Henry Kissinger, and Nixon, and we saw that modern China, which was under Mao Zedong with the Cultural Revolution, when millions of victims died, and poverty. And the modern China that we see today is the 70s. This is the political will that was accepted, and then this political will was adopted in defiance of the Soviet Union. Let me remind you that it was the Soviet Union then, so there were bad relations with China. The Americans just played on this. The Americans will now work in this triangle. The United States, China, Russia, because they need Russia as a deterrent against China. This means that they will have to negotiate with Russia, but I do not think that this will have to be done at the expense of Ukraine. Or Ukraine will agree in this situation. If in 2014 it was still possible to assume. In principle, that's what they did. Then the paws were up, we could not do anything. But today, after what you've been through, I don't think that. Whether it's Donald Trump, or 2 Donald Trumps will be sitting in the White House. He understands this very well. The fact that I said all this cannot be said in the election campaign. This is when you sit in an office, the intelligence service, the Pentagon, specialists, and all this classified information gathers in front of you. I told you this at the level of my analytics, and if I still had all this secret information that will be presented to him, then he will understand what his strengths and weaknesses are. What are the weaknesses of the same Russia? What are the strengths and weaknesses of the same Ukraine, China, and everything else? And then he will make a decision. And so I just came to the office, picked up the phone, solved this issue. This is absolutely not the same country, the United States of America. This is not Russia, this is not China. This is a completely different situation. Therefore, everything will have to be weighed here. I very much hope that what I have outlined to you is partially consistent with the victory plan or some points of this victory plan that President Zelensky would like to announce. Because the guarantee of Ukraine's security today must be provided by one of the permanent members of the Security Council, who will fit in for Ukraine. It is not a permanent member of the Security Council that has entered for Azerbaijan, but it is the second NATO army. And this is also a very strong argument. And if today the multipolar world somehow goes in the wrong direction or someone does something wrong, I have no doubt that the time will come that Turkey will want to have nuclear weapons. And why is Turkey worse than North Korea? Then Turkey is worse than Iran, Israel. Israel also has nuclear weapons. Why does Israel have it, and Turkey can't? Israel is an ally of the United States. Turkey is an ally of the United States. Turkey is a member of NATO in general. Therefore, if this issue is not raised today, it may be raised tomorrow. As President Zelensky said, if we do not raise this issue today, it is because you abandoned us after 1994 under the Budapest Memorandum, And if you put pressure on us today and think that in 2014 we cannot resist strongly, then if the nation supports President Zelensky, everyone will have to reckon with this, including President Trump. I really hope so, Mr. Yunus. Thank you for this conversation. Once again I congratulate you on your birthday, which was 3 days ago, and I think that in the coming weeks and months we will see some steps, and with you, I very much hope, we will have the opportunity to discuss who will recruit whom, what they will say, and we will analyze and listen to you about this. Thank you very much. Thank you, goodbye, glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes. Well, my name is Ihor Havryshchak. You traditionally like this video, comment, subscribe and be sure to share this conversation. See you on Channel 24.